baby's still up under the truck. The other boy, I done flipped over, so he's kind of responsive and he's in and out.
Horror at the morning bus stop. An SUV hits 3 children waiting to get on the school bus. What happened in the moments before the crash and how the children are doing now.
But first, a WDRB news alert, strippers, sanctions, and soon a response. The University of Louisville now knows what the NCAA thinks about the scandal that surrounded its basketball program for the past year. And in about 30 minutes, the school is going to respond to the notice of allegations it received from the NCAA that found 4 major violations. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on this busy Thursday. I'm Chris Suter. And I'm Valerie Chin. WDRB News was the first to tell you about this developing story today. We have a team of journalists covering the allegations, the reaction, and the fallout. Let's go live to the University of Louisville. Tom Lane, Eric Crawford, and Rick Bozich. Guys, bottom line, what does this mean for U of L basketball and Coach Rick Pitino?
Hey, we're at Grawemeyer Hall here on the campus of the University of Louisville. We are a little less than a half hour away from a press conference that will involve the notice of allegations that was received by the university. They received it Monday. They released those findings today, and really no real bombshells, I don't think. Any surprises to you, Eric?
No, not really. There were some things that we really thought were big deals early on in this investigation that didn't show up. A money order from Andre McGee back to Katina Powell and a lot of things like that. But the basics of this, 4 major violations, most of them against Andre McGee, 1 against Rick Pitino, and that's the one the university says specifically it will dispute moving forward, that he did not monitor Andre McGee.
And that could lead to a suspension. Technically, it could lead to a show cause.
Yeah, a show cause. You know, a show cause is something that sticks to the coach no matter where he goes to coach. The more likely thing is some type of suspension, whether it's 9 games like we saw with Jim Boeheim and Larry Brown. I think that's probably unlikely, but he is looking at some type of further sanction unless they can convince the NCAA otherwise from what they've alleged.
Rick, what was your biggest takeaway from the notice that came out today?
Well, a couple things. I think if you actually read it, we're about 2 or 3 blocks from where 14 strip shows and 11 sex acts with prostitutes went on campus in the basketball dorm. We knew it was coming, it was in the book, but when you actually see it in the NCAA investigation, that's pretty jarring. Don't remember that in any other NCAA investigations. The flip side is, though, that they claim in there that Andre McGee didn't talk, and Rick Pitino says he didn't know anything about it, and the NCAA seems to back up that, says he should have known something about it because he didn't monitor Andre McGee, but said he did not know about it, and nobody on the coaching staff did. So if you'd like Rick Pitino and defend Rick Pitino, you can do that.
Let's take a look at what was not alleged in the notice of allegations. It does not contain an allegation that Coach Pitino had any knowledge of what took place in the dormitory. It does not allege of lack of institutional control at Louisville, which would have been a very severe allegation. It does not allege that there was a failure to monitor against the institution, and it does not allege that Coach Pitino failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance. All those would have been really very severe. Again, the most severe seems to be that Rick Pitino failed to monitor Andre McGee.
And what that leads you to conclude is further sanctions in terms of the basketball program are not likely. We can't say that for sure. Nobody knows what that enforcement committee is going to do, but vacating championships, wins, things like that, it doesn't look likely from what we've seen from these allegations.
Next steps now, Louisville has 90 days to respond, Rick?
Louisville gets 90 days to respond. The NCAA gets 60 days to respond to that response, so that's 5 months down the road. Then they schedule a hearing in front of the Committee of Infractions, and then a ruling would come probably late May, June, July. I think that's when we'll know a resolution to this, Tom.
And those time frames, the 90 days, the 60 days, those are maximum time frames. Correct. Do you expect them to respond any time earlier?
I don't know that they will, and in fact, sometimes they ask for extensions and things like that. I think those are rough guidelines. I don't think they'll try and rush this through that I can see.
So obviously, should there be any suspension for Coach Pitino down the road, it would not really affect this year, it doesn't seem.
No, it doesn't seem like it. And they sat out last year in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. I would doubt if that would happen again this year.
Yeah.
And again, this is not the penalty phase. That comes down the road after that 90 days and the 60 days, and then really a court hearing type situation. So we could be looking at, as you say, well into next spring or summer before we find out exactly what penalties the university may face beyond what they've already self-imposed. He's Rick Bozich and Eric Crawford. I'm Tom Lane. We'll be back a little before the press conference at noon to discuss things a little further. At Grawemeyer Hall in the University of Louisville, Tom Lane, WDRB Sports.
All right, fellas, thank you. And as you guys know, we have been following the allegations from the beginning. It started last year when we learned about a book that was about to be released.
On October 2nd, 2015, the University of Louisville first responded to the allegations in breaking cardinal rules. Coach Pitino denied any knowledge of the allegations. On October 22nd, Pitino apologized but said he will not resign. The next day, former U of L operations manager Andre McGee resigned from his coaching position at the University of Missouri-Kansas City. On February 5th of this year, U of L announced a self-imposed ban from the NCAA tournament. That brings us to today, when the school released the NCAA notice of allegations. New this morning, the Kentucky Supreme Court has ruled that Louisville Metro government overstepped its authority when it enacted a local minimum wage.
The court reversed an earlier ruling by a Jefferson County judge saying wages are regulated at the state level. That means the city's ordinance conflicts with state law and thus is invalid and unenforceable. Metro Council passed an ordinance back in 2014 to raise the minimum wage. This summer, it was jumped to $8.25. It was on tap to jump again next summer to $9 an hour. The ruling means employees will once again be able to pay the national minimum at $7.25.
We're getting some much needed rain this morning.
Katie McGraw lets us know which areas will get hit the hardest. What do you think, Katie?
Well, I truly think that most of the area is going to see some good rain today, and at times you can have some heavier pockets. In downtown, we've already seen 3/10 of an inch, and it really only started raining this morning. Otherwise, as we look at our radar over the past couple of hours here, you can see that now the coverage is a lot more, giving us that 80% chance for rain. And diving in and looking at areas a little bit closer here, you can see just north of Bedford some heavier showers with those oranges and reds. There's also a little bit of some lightning as you extend down from Mitchell into Salem. In downtown, we're also seeing some heavier showers basically from Charlestown through Silver Creek, and then just off to the north and west of Metro. Over to our east, we're also seeing some heavier showers push out of the area, and down to the south, there's a little bit more light rain. Now, this is all associated with a cold front, and temperatures have already dropped 14 degrees, and we're going to continue to dip. Although we're still into the middle and upper 60s across the area, by the end of the day, it's going to be a lot cooler. I'll tell you just how chilly we're going to get and when we'll see the sunshine return coming up.
All right, Katie, thank you. 2 young children are in critical condition. A third is also in the hospital after being hit by an SUV while trying to board a school bus. WDRB's Mara Sirianni has been at the scene all morning. She explains what happened. Mara?
Well, the horrific scene happened in the intersection right behind me here, 32nd and Duminal. It's a pretty busy intersection, as you can see. The driver of an SUV ignored that stopped school bus and crashed into 3 young kids. The calls came in around 8 o'clock this morning for reports of the accident. Police say JCPS bus 1141 on its way to Dixie and Engelhard Elementary Schools was hit while making a stop. Investigators say an SUV going east on Duminal ignored the bus's flashing lights and stop sign, sped past the school bus on the right, and crashed into 3 young kids standing in the yard. Now, the bus did not have any students on it at the time. One woman who lives right across the street saw the accident. She says a young girl was trapped underneath that SUV and describes the frantic moments she spent trying to call for help.
All the kids was bleeding. Well, I don't know about the little girl because I wasn't here when they pulled her from up under the vehicle. But when I left to go try to find the parents, it was just her legs down that was out, and she was kicking and trying to breathe.
That woman says Duminal is a very busy street where lots of kids play and wait for their school buses. The driver of the SUV, we know, was taken to the hospital, but we don't know his condition. And again, at last check, 2 of those children are in critical condition. They're at Cosair. We don't know how the 3rd child is doing at this point. We're told that the principals of both of those elementary schools are at the hospital with those students at this time. And I also just got off the phone with LMPD. I asked about charges, any possible charges that the driver of that SUV could face. At this point, he said we're still waiting to learn that information as well. Reporting live along Duminal Street, Mara Sirianni, WDRB News.
All right, Mara, thank you. An Okolona Elementary School teacher is accused of unsafe behavior with students. Daryl Watson is under investigation for spraying a special needs student in the face with a water bottle for not paying attention. According to a disciplinary letter, it happened on August 19th. Watson was initially suspended without pay at the beginning of last month. He has since been reassigned to non-instructional duties at the Lee's Lane bus compound. Watson has worked for JCPS since 2010. Education reporter Tony Kahns writes about a different case in which he admitted to making inappropriate comments to students and why he was never disciplined. Read our story right now on WDRB.com.
No arrests have been made in a triple shooting in the Limerick neighborhood. It happened around 5 yesterday afternoon at College Court and South 8th Street. Police found a woman who had been shot. She was taken to University Hospital in critical condition. A short time later, 2 people who had been shot showed up at the hospital. Investigators believe all 3 victims were shot at the same location. It's not clear what led to the shooting.
The final debate for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the choice words they used to insult each other.
Stick with WDRB. We're awaiting this live press conference as U of L responds to major allegations from the NCAA over its basketball sex scandal.
More now on the developing story we've been telling you about throughout this newscast. This is a live look from the University of Louisville, where school officials will speak in just a few moments about an NCAA report that found the school committed 4 Level 1 violations after a scandal involving strippers, prostitutes, and its men's basketball team. We will carry that press conference live here on WDRB and on WDRB.com. First to other news of the day, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton square off in their final presidential debate.
Doug Lazater explains the attacks the pair threw at each other last night.
Donald Trump called Hillary Clinton a liar and a nasty woman. Clinton called Trump a puppet for Vladimir Putin. Now, the two didn't even shake hands as the debate began here last night, and in many ways, things went downhill from there.
Chris, we don't gain anything.
He has all these
Iran is taking over Iraq.
Secretary Clinton.
Iran is taking over Iraq.
At times, this debate was nearly impossible to control. But one question and one answer getting a great deal of attention this morning. Will Donald Trump be willing to accept a loss on November 8th?
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Trump said the media is rigging the election for Hillary Clinton, but also brought up the possibility of voter fraud.
Well, Chris, let me respond to that because that's horrifying.
And Clinton would also accuse Trump of serving the interests of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
From everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit that the Russians have engaged in cyber attacks against the United States of America.
The two argued about the Supreme Court, trade deals, and foreign policy. Trump accused Clinton and her campaign of arranging for women to come forward to accuse him of misconduct and referred to new undercover videos showing a Democratic operative claiming to have disrupted Trump rallies.
She's the one in Obama that caused the violence. They hired people, they paid them $1,500, and they're on tape saying, be violent, cause fights, do bad things.
And the question that remains this morning, what kind of an impact will this debate have overall? One thing to keep in mind, more than 2 million people have already cast votes in this election. In Las Vegas, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
Indiana officials say thousands of altered registration records may not be fraud. The Secretary of State's office says the differences could be residents rushing to correct their names or birth dates before the November election. State police launched an investigation earlier this month after officials found more changes to voter registrations than usual. Officials say the database Indiana uses to track registrations has not been compromised.
The NCAA alleges major violations within the U of L men's basketball program. We're expected to learn more about the report at a news conference coming up in less than 15 minutes.
A cold front is moving through the area and bringing some much needed rain, but it's also going to bring the return of fall, at least for briefly. We are going to see temperatures into the 40s for tonight. I'll tell you how much lower we will go for this weekend coming up.
Strippers, prostitutes, and now serious allegations against the University of Louisville by the NCAA. Here's a live look from Grawemeyer Hall, where men's basketball coach Rick Pitino, Director of Athletics Tom Jurich, and Acting President Neville Pinto will discuss the NCAA report that was released this morning. We're now just moments away from that press conference, and we'll bring it to you live here and on WDRB.com when it happens.
WDRB weather, sponsored by Baptist Health, centered on you.
And Mother Nature keeping her name in the headlines as well, because we're finally seeing some much needed rain across the area. Most of it now basically east of I-65. We're seeing some heavier showers in parts of the area, but really not that much thunderstorm activity at this time, so that's good. You can see that some of that heavier rain that we were just looking at the start of our show near Bedford has continued to push further in now into Jackson and Jennings County. We're also looking closer into Louisville and right in downtown from Silver Creek down into Clarksville. That's where we're seeing some of the heaviest rain, and then over out to the east, some of those heaviest showers that were in Shelbyville and Shelby County have continued to push off further into eastern Kentucky, and that's where we have the better threat for severe weather today. Is further out to our east and south for today. Yesterday was further up into the north, but today I think that we will probably just see some of these more shower activities, some heavy rain at times, lots of lightning too. Just in my drive into work this morning, saw tons of it. This is a time lapse from 10 to about 11 a.m. and you can see how it was pretty rainy throughout downtown at that time. Then we've had a little bit of some drier conditions, but now it's picking back up some of that heavier rain that's moving through the area right now. And HRRR is basically getting the forecast exactly right, so it's initializing correctly so we can try to trust it as it moves throughout the rest of today. Some of the heavier showers right now east of I-65, and there's another batch of some rain. So the best chance to see rain basically now until about 3-4 p.m. Then we get to about 5, and the chance for rain is going to diminish a little bit. When all is said and done, though, we get a nice dose of rain for everybody, ranging from about 1/2 inch to even in Louisville, 0.8 of an inch. Hopefully that can actually happen because we were seeing such a dry month prior to today. Now, temperatures are already starting to fall with this cold front. We were originally hoping to reach 70 degrees. Don't think that we've done that yet. Upper 60s only. Now we're at 66 in downtown along with St. Matthews. Widening out that view, 60 for Bedford, 64 for Jasper, and we are about 15 degrees cooler than yesterday. So although this isn't going to be our high necessarily, most of the afternoon into the middle 60s and falling. So you're going to continue to see temperatures drop. So later today by 5, where we normally see the high about 3-4 p.m., it's going to be a lot cooler. So it's a little bit of a rarity because of the timing of the front. Much cooler conditions tonight, 48 degrees, and also a little bit breezy, was just off the edge there, but we could see some gusty winds up to about 25 miles per hour. And this is from a series of cold fronts. So we had yesterday's front, and now we have the secondary front. And once it finally clears the area, high pressure will be able to build in, and it's going to clear things up and allow things to get pretty chilly for this weekend. Our biggest problem is going to be wondering about the cloud cover for this weekend and if we're able to drop down into the 30s or not, and therefore could see the first frost across the area for many of us. For this weekend's game, Cards game, 43 degrees to start off the game, so it's going to be a little bit chilly. Great football weather, though, truly. 61 by 4 p.m. and plenty of sunshine. We'll be breezy and cool with a few showers early for tomorrow. Then they get on out of here and we'll see decreasing clouds. A high of only 59, though. Comparing that to the temperatures we've had for the past couple of days, where we were breaking records left and right for high temperatures and even the low temperatures for being so warm. Now we're a lot cooler, but notice that it's not that long. Back to the middle 70s by Sunday with plenty of sunshine. By Thursday, we're near 80 degrees once again. So I wouldn't say that summer is quite over, at least the summer-like conditions quite over quite yet.
Yeah, 70s. We'll take that, Katie. Thank you. U of L's acting president, athletic director, and head basketball coach are getting ready to speak about the NCAA notice of allegations. Just a little over a year after Breaking Cardinal Rules was released, we hear what the NCAA believes happened on campus and who's responsible. We take you to the press conference live in this room coming up next.
The NCAA issues a notice of allegations against a U of L men's basketball program.
WDRB's Tom Lane and Lawrence Smith are on the campus at Grawemeyer Hall, where a news conference is scheduled to start in just a few minutes. Guys?
Well, we're a few minutes away from a news conference in which U of L will address the NCAA notice of allegations. That news conference to feature athletic director Tom Jurich, acting president Neville Pinto, and Coach Rick Pitino, among others, talking about what we learned today, and that is what the NCAA believes happened just a few minutes from here in Minority Hall, joined by sports director Tom Lane. Tom, 4 major allegations contained in this notice. Talk about those.
Yeah, the notice of allegations confirmed that there were violations that occurred. You mentioned 4 major ones. There were 14 stripper parties, 11 sex acts, $5,400 changed hands over the 4-year period. But it also did confirm that Andre McGee seemed to act on his own on this. There were things that were not alleged, and let's go through those. The notice of allegations does not contain an allegation that Coach Pitino had any knowledge of what took place in the dormitory. It does not allege a lack of institutional control at Louisville, and it does not allege that there was a failure to monitor against the institution. Those would have been certainly severe allegations, and it does not allege that Coach Pitino failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance. The one major thing it does allege is that Coach Pitino failed to demonstrate that he monitored Coach McGee, and that is the one thing that the University of Louisville is going to answer to in the next 90 days.
There was 4 major allegations, 2 against Andre McGee, the former assistant.
Right.
And also 1 against Pitino and 1 against Brandon Williams, who is a former program assistant here at U of L for apparently not cooperating with the NCAA.
Failed to give over his phone records, and that was the one thing that came out that was a little bit of a surprise. We were not really aware of him being involved.
Well, it looks like the folks who are involved in this news conference just passed by us. We're going to go live inside Jefferson Room now for this news conference by U of L regarding the NCAA notice of allegations.
Thanks.
All right, thanks everyone for being with us today. We'll get started with today's news conference shortly. First, here with us today, to my right, our U of L Acting President, Dr. Neville Pinto, Vice President, Director of Athletics, Tom Jurich, Head Basketball, Rick Pitino, Steve Thompson, a lawyer with Nixon Peabody, who is working with the university as an outside counsel on this matter, and our outside consultant, Chuck Smirt, with the compliance group. There may be a couple of questions that are asked today that we asked the latter 2 individuals to